From spending 4 years delegitimizing the Trump presidency to calling the 2020 election for Joe Biden before it's official, mainstream media is now obsessed with the peaceful transition of power. Here are some recent headlines that fall right into the lib hysteria category. CNN writes how Trump's transition of power delay threatens national security and public safety. That's right. We're all going to die because Trump has filed lawsuits about an election. An AP headline reads, quote, refusing to concede, Trump blocks cooperation on transition. And then you have these two beauties from the Washington Post. Quote, the transition process is too important to be left to Trump's whims and the life-threatening costs of a delayed transition. Oh, wow, they really are saying we're going to die because of the delays of the transition. Oh, these people are so nuts. But let's be honest. None of the so-called journos actually believe Trump's not going to leave office in January. Come on. So don't you think it's time they spare us the theatrics? Can we have a couple weeks off? Here to weigh in is Michael Malice, host of the podcast You're Welcome, and author of Dear Reader and The New Right. Mr. Malice, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Buck. It's been a while.
One of my favorite Malicisms is your view of and some of your lines about the corporate press. You had a tweet here with a fellow named Wajahat Ali. He wrote, you can't heal or reform the GOP, who are now an extremist party. They have to be broken, burned down, and rebuilt. You responded, the corporate press is the enemy of the people, sometimes explicitly. I think you are correct, and I just want to know how you view this now as a thesis at a time when it seems more and more Americans are being red-pilled, waking up to the reality of the corporate press.
Well, I'm glad you just corrected yourself and said corporate press, because earlier you said mainstream media. And that's a term that really has to be taken out of popular use on the right. There is nothing mainstream about them. This is a radical ideology that has had its roots in American culture for over a century. And the claim that they in any way represent the center of this country or even the center of the left, I think is fallacious, number one. Number two is what you see, Wajahat and many others are explicitly calling for the open destruction of their opposition. And they're doing this, of course, in the name of unity. And it's technically true in a totalitarian state where there is no opposition. You do have unity, you do have uniformity. But what I think you got a little bit wrong is they're not yelling at Trump. They're yelling at Trump's supporters because they had a fantasy in their minds that President Trump, who is some supernatural evil, once you kill the head vampire, the movie ends. All the minions go away, they go home, the heroes rejoice. The fact that many of Trump's fans weren't really fans of Trump per se, but what Trump was doing, the fact that they understand that far more than Joe Biden, their enemy is CNN, the Washington Post, and outlets like that, and that they're not giving up now that Trump has lost, is confusing to them, and they're getting rocked back on their heels because they thought this was going to be the victory of themselves, the good guys, over the bad guys. And what they're telling Trump, give up, they're telling you and your listeners, submit, stop fighting, you lost, go home, it's over. And it's not over. And no one is going home. And these people are going to have a very, very rude awakening immediately.
It's remarkable. It does seem that there was a widespread belief that had been fostered by the corporate press, as we can agree to call them, that if only Trump was gone, then everything that Trump talked about, the change in the approach of the GOP, the change in the national political conversation, substantial change on issues like trade, like immigration, like the way the president should interact when he's from the Republican Party with the opposition media, as if that was really going to go away. You think they actually deluded themselves into believing that?
Yes. There's also another lie that they promulgate, which is that Trump was an unprecedented divisive president. And now that he's gone, we can go back to the way things were, where we're unified as a country. Whereas you and I and people who work in our space can remember perfectly well 2011, 2012, 2013, unprecedented obstructionism. Unprecedented obstructionism. No one has ever faced such opposition as Barack Obama. So this claim that this only happened when President Trump came into office and that a nation was divided is on their own terms a lie. So they're going to also be very confused because people who are conservatives, if they had their way in 2012 and Mitt Romney won, they would have that week of celebration that, Barack Obama, who they hated, was defeated. And then they'd have to go home and realize, wait a minute, now I have 4 years of Mitt Romney as president. So many of these AOC types who thought Trump was the devil, literally Hitler, Mussolini, and all these people put together, are now going to have to watch as Cindy McCain and John Kasich help Joe Biden try to construct the most bipartisan presidentship since George H.W. Bush, if not earlier.
Now, assuming that fails, and I would bet considerably on the side of it not being a successful effort, and I'm not even sure how long it'll last, or even if it's made, forget about it, in good faith, with seriousness, or if they're just going through the motions. I mean, they've talked about unity. They really mean bend the knee, as you pointed out, and do what we say. How long do you think it is before they might move to Trump was a uniquely evil monster, and actually whoever becomes the voice, I think it will continue to be Trump most likely if Biden takes office, but whoever the main voices of opposition are, they're within the Republican Party, they're monsters too. I mean, I still remember when Mitt Romney was a guy with women stuck in binders who gave old people cancer while abusing the dog on the roof of his car.
Oh, yeah. George W. Bush was an unprecedented monster. Before that, it was Newt Gingrich. There's always a boogeyman. The right has their own boogeymen, too, Nancy Pelosi and Clinton and others like that. But I think they're going to be a rude awakening, because I genuinely think Joe Biden, who's been a creature of Washington since the Nixon era, really has a better opinion of Mitch McConnell than most of your listeners. And I think he's going to try to reach out and work with Republicans. And this is going to drive a lot of Democrats very, very crazy.
Interesting. Yeah, if he did make any real effort at bipartisan movement, that would drive the AOC wing, the socialists within the Democrat midst, completely insane. I mean, that they would view as really betraying their cause, which is the total eradication of conservatism in the Republican Party in America. I think they've made that much clear. Michael, you're also a guy that operates in some of the new media spaces, various platforms. I've been on your show, you've been on my shows. Do you think that because of what we saw, which was not surprising, but it was unprecedented, the suppression of stories damaging to one political candidate at the height of an election cycle by social media companies, not even now we're talking about by the corporate news media.
Sure.
Do you think that's created a rift and a shift that is going to play out with profound implications, or are we just going to go back to the old normal?
Oh, I think this is wonderful, because this is something that's going to cause them great problems. So let me give you a non-political example. Right now, if I'm on Facebook and I want to sell a cologne that's tobacco scented, the marketplace algorithm will flag it and pull the ad from me. So if you are going to have a search engine, but you're going to gummy up the works so that I can't actually use it to search, that is going to drive consumers away from my product, because I can't find what I'm looking for. These filters cannot be used effectively when you're dealing with infinite free flow information. And it is very hard to maintain a universal user base, as Facebook and Google would like to do, when a significant portion of your customers regard you as having your finger on the scale and being a partisan actor. It's going to make them feel this is not a place for me. Comedy Central is a good example of this. Ever since Jon Stewart left, and Trevor Noah, who's certainly the B-list of that group, it has made it even more of a kind of this corporate jihadi outlet. Their numbers are in the toilet, and anyone who's even moderate is not really going to be a fan of that show, and it's going to have deleterious consequences. So I think it's very healthy as our nation continues to self-segregate along ideological lines.
What happens in your mind to CNN and MSNBC and these legacy media platforms that still have some considerable reach? CNN.com, people often forget, it's kind of a default for those who are looking for news. It comes up very high in Google search results. So they still reach a whole lot of folks. What do you think happens to those networks in a post-Trump era? Do they approach propping up old man Biden with the same gusto that they did tearing down Trump?
Well, I don't think I'm in a position legally to tell you what's going on in my mind to people at CNN. But in terms of your more specific question, we are going to be seeing the Republican Party fighting harder to maintain Biden in power than they did to maintain Trump in power once the 25th Amendment talk starts happening and they try to pull him out in terms of Kamala Harris.
You really believe that? I mean, I've said the same thing, but I just want to get you on the record here. You think that if Biden ascends to the office, as is expected, but not a done deal right now, that it's only a matter of time before Kamala is going to step up and step in?
I think that's an inevitability. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, based on
Or
his
they're
age,
gonna try.
based on his
They're gonna
age, I
try.
think the statistics, the numbers. So this isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. The guy's almost 80, so he's going to be getting into his mid 80s. The chance of him having a major health event, we both know, and I don't mean anything, and I don't wish any ill will on the man, but just based on his age, it's a very real possibility. There's a reason why you can't take out a $10 million life insurance policy when you're 90, right? I mean, no one's going to insure you for that for obvious reasons. Joe Biden is really pushing it with his health and with this, so Kamala Harris would step in. And then just clarify this for me before we let you go, but do you think the GOP would want to help keep Biden in place and prevent his removal? Is that where you were going?
Gun to head, who would you vote for, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris?
Yeah,
I
Joe
don't think it'd
Biden.
be a hard choice. That's exactly my point, right?
Yeah, well, fair
So
enough.
they would do everything in their power to make sure she's not president and he stays in. That would be a no-brainer.
We'll have to have you back. Well, this will be quite a prediction in time, by the way. Remember when I was on your show, I said that the House will refuse to certify the election results if Trump wins? Well, it looks like we're just refusing to certify election results in a different way right now. But I knew it was going to get ugly here. But Michael Malice, everybody, check out You're Welcome. Follow him on social media. The man himself. Michael, good to see you. Hey Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.